But we're going to instead focus on college basketball, where a neat thing is unfolding. I don't know if you've noticed, but Auburn and Duke aren't just number one and number two. They've actually separated from the rest of the sport in the betting markets as it pertains to odds to win the 2025 NCAA tournament. Right now, Auburn plus 380, Duke plus 390. Nobody else in the country is better than plus 1,000. They are also number one and number two in the net and number one and number two at KenPom.com. And they are being led, and this is the neat part, by the two men who have emerged as the obvious candidates for National Player of the Year. At Auburn, it's Johni Broome. At Duke, it's Cooper Flagg. So, Norlander, let me ask you this. Do you have a sense for how unusual it is this early in February for two teams to separate from the pack and be led by the two players that have also more or less separated from the pack in the Wooden Award race?
So for everyone watching, thank you for joining us right here on CBS Sports Network Live. And for anyone listening to this after the fact on your phones or watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. Here's what I love. Parrish does not realize this, but he picked the opening topic. This leads tomorrow's court report. I had decided this days ago. Do I have a sense? Well, you bet I have a sense. But what we have right now, as it's still developing, we're not guaranteed to get it by the time we get to mid-March, but we're certainly pacing toward it, is something unlike anything we've had since 2000, this century at least, but really over the past 50 years, we are getting something fairly unprecedented. Here are some quick numbers before we get into the Flagg Broom comparisons. I got some stats on that as well. The most recent battle for National Player of the Year that was a two-person race that was really compelling, where you had split votes, was Denzel Valentine and Buddy Hield. That season, Michigan State and Oklahoma were both two seeds. They weren't the two best teams in the country. Neither of them got to the top line there. Oklahoma made the Final Four. Michigan State was upset in the first round of the NCAA tournament by Middle Tennessee. Oh, by the way, after the fact, just one of many things we can look at for National Player of the Year, the KenPom algorithm. Buddy Hield was number 3 that year. Denzel Valentine was number 4. This season right now, Broom and Flagg are by far 1 and 2. There's no one even close to them in the race overall. Prior to that, J.J. Redick and Adam Morrison, a very famous one. Duke was a 1 seed that year. Gonzaga was a 3. They both won their leagues. They were both knocked out in the Sweet 16, but those are not the two best teams in the country that season. Prior to that, 03-04, Jameer Nelson won most of the Player of the Year awards, but Emeka Okafor did win one of them. St. Joe's is the 1 seed. UConn was a 2. UConn did not even win its league that season. And then the season before that, 02-03, you might be thinking, yeah, Hughes, Carmelo. Guess what? Carmelo was a second-team All-American that season. That was a 3-way race. There were 3 players that earned at least one National Player of the Year recognition honor. TJ Ford, a 1 seed on Texas. Nick Collison, Kansas was a 2 seed and won the Big 12, while Texas was a better seed at number 1. And then David West was on an awesome Xavier team. He was a menace. That Xavier team was a 3 seed that won the A-10. 3 players won National Player of the Year. Those have been the best Player of the Year races this century, but none of them compared to what we have right now. We have never had in recent history over the past 3+ decades a situation where the 2 best teams in the country also have by far the 2 best players in the country, and those 2 players are essentially neck and neck at this point in the season. I think it's an amazing and awesome thing for college basketball.
And I also love just how different they are as players and just their entire makeup. One of them has been labeled a future star since he was 15, 16 years old. The other one started his career at Morehead State. One of them is projected to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. The other one has some question marks about exactly what he'll be in that league, although I think you'd be crazy to bet against him playing in that league. He'll be a role player, a rotation piece for a good franchise, I would assume, as a professional. And then the difference in age. Cooper Flagg, as you know, just turned 18 4 days before Christmas. Johni Broome is 22 years old and quite literally 53 months older than Cooper Flagg. So I just love the way these two teams have emerged, the way these 2 players have emerged. And once we get the Super Bowl behind us and people start zeroing in on college basketball a little bit more, this is going to be the biggest story in the sport. And it's why we led with it today. Eventually, the Cooper Flagg Johni Broome debate that already exists in our little circles, it'll become the type of thing that's being talked about on sports shows all across the country, not just sports shows connected to college basketball.
No doubt about it. I love that you tapped into, to me, they represent the differences in college hoops as well. You've got a blue blood program in Duke that's had, amazing freshmen, number 1 picks, national players of the year. And then you've got an Auburn program that has been completely transformed by Bruce Pearl that had minimal amounts of history. All due respect to Chris Porter, that team matches this one in terms of best starts ever in Auburn history. But these are two very different programs. These are two very different players. They project differently at the NBA level. Johni Broome could barely get a college scholarship offer coming out of the state of Florida as a high school prospect, and then through the portal, he turns into one of the best players in the country, and he's a transfer. He's a senior. He's a fifth-year guy. You can see what he's doing, how he's dominating. Cooper Flagg is the immediate, highly hyped, delivers right away. I just love every single angle and comparison and juxtaposition about the two players, about the two teams, the two programs, the two coaches. Jon Scheyer, he's in his third season on the job. Bruce Pearl is building out a Hall of Fame resume and doing things now that continue to one-up what he's been able to do at Auburn overall. I think it's fascinating. We've had some awesome National Players of the Year races over the seasons and over the years, but there hasn't been one quite like this. And I hope, but I also believe, Parrish, that this is going to continue to be a thing. It started about 3 weeks ago when Flagg has been good all season, but we really waited for Duke to make that big pronouncement. The game against Pitt early in January, he had the big dunk, had a big breakout game, and suddenly it got really close. Broome had the ankle injury, which allowed Flagg to make up some ground. And since then, it's been one thing after the other. Now Duke hosts Syracuse on Wednesday. Should be a walkover. We'll see what Flagg's numbers there are. Auburn tonight hosts Oklahoma, with Broome having an opportunity to put up his next game. We have reached the point, in my opinion, that it is a game-by-game, what did this guy do, what did that guy do kind of race, and that's wonderful for college hoops. Real quick, GP, I want your take on who you'd vote for right now. I'm going to give you a couple of quick stats, and you tell me who you would take right now, not who you think will win it and what you think you're going to vote on when we do this, in the midst of the NCAA tournament. But today, if we had to end it. Right now, Flagg, best Broome, 20 points per game to 18.3. Broome, best Flagg, rebounds, 11.2 for Broome, 8 per game on the boards for Flagg. In assists, Flagg's got them, but they're both respectable. 4.2 dimes for Flagg, 3.1 for Broome. In blocks, it's Broome easy, 2.7 to 1.2. And in steals, Flagg doubles up Broome, 1.5 to 0.7 overall. Those are traditional stats, but I do want to let you know that in terms of offensive rating, box plus minus, player efficiency rating, Broome has a lead on Flagg in all of those kind of more advanced predictive metric stuff. And if you do per 40 minutes, Broome also best Flagg, because remember, there have been 2 instances this season where Broome has gotten hurt in game, and so his per game averages have actually suffered as a result. So if you go to per 40 minutes, Broome is beating out Flagg. Broome's on the number 1 team in the country that's held that position for a number of weeks here. We know what Flagg's been able to do. If you had to vote today, would you go Flagg or would you go Broome?
I would submit a ballot that had Cooper Flagg at number 1, but I don't feel strongly about it and don't even feel as strongly about it as I felt, say, 2 weeks ago. Like, I was on the record not too long ago saying I thought Cooper Flagg was going to run away with the Player of the Year race. I don't believe that's true anymore. This is going to be debatable probably to the end, and I don't know that it'll be clear-cut. I would vote for Cooper Flagg. I would make him the youngest National Player of the Year in the history of men's college basketball, but there's a compelling case to be made for Johni Broome, and you don't even have to get that creative. You can just lay out a lot of the numbers you just laid out and point to the number 1 sitting next to Auburn's name, and there's your case. It's a fascinating race, very, very close. Right now, my ballot would be for Cooper Flagg.
I would go Broome narrowly. This also is a rare case where these players have faced each other in the regular season. Yet another dynamic with this. When the two teams met back in December, on December 4th, Duke won in Cameron 84-78. In that game, Broome had 20 points, 12 boards, 3 assists. He did foul out. Flagg in that game, 22 points, 11 boards, 4 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Flagg outplayed Broome head-to-head in that particular game. I would give the edge to Broome because I think he narrowly, and I mean narrowly, has a statistical edge on Flagg right now, and he is doing it unquestionably in a league that is exceedingly more difficult than the ACC. Right now, I would give it to Broome. What I do hope happens is that these two continue to be incredible. The teams continue to be awesome. They continue to dominate the storyline. We talk about it practically on a weekly basis on the pod. And then for historical purposes, it will be reflected in the National Player of the Year voting the way that it is with those other races I just told you about to top off the show. So when we look back 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, we see, they split it 3-3, or one guy had 4 and one guy had 2. I think that could be the way that we are heading. A reminder to our viewers on CBS Sports Network: for CBS Sports, we've long held the belief that we hold off on our National Player of the Year voting until after the Elite Eight, but before the Final Four, so we let some NCAA tournament performance have a factor, but not have it be the overriding factor. It seems kind of silly to log your Player of the Year vote on, say, March 17th when you've got significant, meaningful games that could ever so slightly sway the vote one way or the other, and it feels like with these two guys, it really may come down to that.
Last thing on this, you mentioned the difference in leagues. The SEC is clearly the best league in the country and arguably the best league of all time in its current form. The ACC ranks fifth right now among conferences, according to the net. People who argue in favor of Johni Broome, which is often Auburn fans on social media, will point this out, and they'll say, what he's doing in the SEC should be more appreciated than what Cooper Flagg is doing in the ACC. Obviously, we've had National Players of the Year come from the West Coast Conference, come from the Atlantic 10, come from all sorts of leagues, even leagues inferior to the current form of the ACC. But in your mind, how much does that matter? How much should it be a factor that Johni Broome is doing this against the SEC and Cooper Flagg is doing it against an inferior conference?
I think it can and should be a factor when you're taking into the level of competition the players are going against. And I would put it more as a notch in Broome's column than a detracting factor in Flagg's. I think there's a specific difference between those two. And as the SEC continues to be on a path toward 11, maybe 12 teams in the NCAA tournament, and the ACC right now is struggling to get 4 of its 18, okay, I think that should be a factor. But it's not like Flagg can't overcome it. I'll also mention something that I wrote about recently for CBSSports.com. Flagg right now leads his team in every major statistical category. There's only been one other freshman in the country that's ever done that, and that was Ben Simmons, who, by the way, did not win National Player of the Year. But then again, Ben Simmons' team on LSU was nowhere near good enough to be an NCAA tournament team, whereas Flagg is guiding the ship on a Duke team that is exceeding the hype overall. So it's a compelling argument. This is going, and I hope it gets louder. I hope people want to talk about it a lot because it's a really good thing for college hoops. The ACC versus SEC factor, I think, will play a role. But I only think that should play a role if really we're looking at these two guys and they continue to be so close, you know, in their statistical profiles across the board, that if ultimately that's what you need to do to split the vote, I think that would be a reasonable thing, because Broome, who has played through injury and maintained really healthy averages despite missing the majority of 2 games, which in effect bring his per game averages down, it makes it all the more impressive what he's doing. If he did not get hurt in those games, obviously his numbers would be even better than what we see right now.